folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, got a few things today for you. Got some tips on bug out bags and camping and survival and just homesteading. And then we want to talk about something that's happening here in Missouri, for especially you Missouri folks that you probably should know about. And then we're going to talk about the Ozarks. I understand that's not the big, exciting, dramatic news that's going on nowadays, but I do get a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people asking about living in the Ozarks. And so today I want to talk about, the people in the Ozarks and what it's like to live here and what are the people like, because that's very important about when you are choosing where to live, where to homestead, where to bug out to. All right, so my tip today is very simple. You know how most of your knives and your tools and your things and whether it's your bug out bag or maybe it's your camping gear or just general things that you have around the homestead, and if you might go out in the woods and do any kind of work, have a place to put a lanyard on it. I'm not a fan of lanyards, but you know what? I'm not a fan of losing my tools either. And when you're out working in these woods, walking in these woods, whether you're bugging out or you're camping or working, or maybe it's in the evening or at night when the light's a little low, it's kind of hard to find things sometimes. And if you drop stuff, which I have, this is a tip that comes from personal experience, sometimes it's kind of hard to find things. It's kind of cool to have things that are camouflaged or, coyote color or olive drab green or whatever that blends in. But when you're trying to find something, it makes it difficult. So what I do is I buy really brightly colored paracord, and I tie just a little fob thing to the end of a lot of my tools and stuff that could get dropped if I'm working, camping, if I'm hunting, if I'm planning on, if I have to bug out or do any kind of survival camping, I might drop something. And I have dropped things in the leaves and in the underbrush, and it's kind of hard to find sometimes because most things, for instance, like this knife, if you dropped it out here in these woods, it would be really difficult to find. It might take you a while, but you put a brightly colored, and you can get this hunter orange, or you can get it in bright yellow or whatever. You can pick this stuff up at like Walmart or anywhere. And I just tie a little bunch of it to the end of it, and it doesn't get in the way or anything. And in that way, if I drop it, I can find it. Now, if you have something that does use a lanyard, which it does serve a purpose sometimes. For instance, a compass here, it came with, I think, like a green or a black or something like that little lanyard. And I took it off and I replaced it with a bright orange one. I understand the concept of camouflage, but most of these kind of items are not things that's going to necessarily give you away. If you are in a situation where you're, in survival mode and you're out bugging out and stuff and you don't want to get caught, of course you would be consciously aware of the fact that you're, toting around something with bright orange, and you either remove it or you do your best to hide it. But I'm telling you, for just normal purposes, when you're out in the woods and you drop something, sometimes it can be difficult to find. And so a lot of these items, again, have a way to tie a little lanyard or a little bit of paracord. And of course, also, it's a little bit of cordage that in a survival situation very possibly could come in handy. So there's my little tip of today for, all things preparedness, bugging out, homesteading, survival. All right, now for those of you in Missouri, there is something happening tomorrow morning. I apologize for getting this out late, but I didn't know about it, or at least know enough of the details about it to talk about it before today. As you all know, the dictator-in-chief in Washington has told all these states and all these companies and everyone that there has to be all these mandates. And several states, many states, are stepping up and saying, no, not here, we're not allowing this. And they're doing different ways, different things to try to stop it. Here in Missouri, there is an effort to recall into a special session of the state legislature, because it's gone, it's out of session. And there's an encouragement to get the governor to do that. and encourage him to be part of this, of passing legislation. Now, the governor has already said that that the whole federal mandate stuff is not welcome here. He said that, as recently as last week again. So it's not that he's not on board with it. It's just encouraging him. There is a letter that has been sent to him. It was signed by at least 16 state senators requesting that a special session be called up, and they're trying to get other senators and congressmen on board. So September 15th, which is Wednesday at 9 a.m., which will be tomorrow morning as of the making of this video, there is a Stop Medical Tyranny type of rally at the state capitol in Jefferson City, Missouri. And it's going to be a peaceful event, talking to state legislatures. From what my understanding, that there are state senators and congressmen that are on board with this, and so they're going to be out there with people, talking with them, and encouraging them. So if you are able to attend, I am not going to be able to attend. My schedule, Jeff City's quite a ways from here, and the things that I've already had planned, I'm not able to do that. But if you are able to, it might be something you would be interested in. And the people that are putting this on, I told them that I would be glad to put out the information. So that's Wednesday morning, September 15th at 9 a.m. in Jefferson City, Missouri, at the Capitol building, to encourage some form of legislation to be passed that would completely block these mandates that are coming down from the federal government. All right, now let's talk about Ozark people. There's something that, everybody knows it, okay? That Ozarkians are just a bunch of hillbillies. I was not born in the Ozarks. I was born in the Smoky Mountains. That's where I come from, is the Smoky Mountain part of Tennessee, eastern Tennessee. So we're just as much hillbillies over there in eastern Tennessee, I guess, as they are here in the Ozarks. But the Ozarks is known for that. Our tourism is kind of revolves in a lot of it, at least, around this kind of hillbilly notion. You go down to Branson, Missouri, which you probably all have heard of it. Some of you may have even been there. And that's what it's all about. They have shows, they have theme parks, everything. And it's all, focused around mountain music and being hillbilly and, that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Along with that stigma is that Ozark people are lazy. They don't work. Ozark people are closed off, closed-minded. They don't like outsiders. They only like their type, their kin, their kind of people. That they don't like people from big cities. They don't like people with a different skin color. They don't like, all this kind of stuff. My personal experience, and I ask and I talk to people all the time about this. And the reason why I'm talking about it here in this video is it's been a subject that I have talked with in just the last few days with different people here in the Ozarks. And so it inspired me to make this video. That the Ozark people aren't really any of those things. Are they country? Yes. Are there bad people here? Sure. Are there people here that aren't very nice, that are rude, that are closed off, that, live off government checks? Are there people here that do drugs and cry? Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? That's everywhere. You're not going to go to anywhere on this planet that you don't find that, right? I don't really think it's that bad here compared to many other places. I think what it is that because most of the people here are really, really good people, that the few and very few bad apples, they kind of stand out a little bit more from the crowd because everyone else is such genuine good people. People here, they're good people and they will help you out, and it doesn't take very long to become friends with people here in the Ozark. In fact, most of these Ozarkian people out here in the country, and let me stop for just a moment. Everything that I'm talking about, I should have said this in the beginning. I am referring to people out here in the countryside. There are a few city centers, not very many, but there are a few that are growing bigger, and that they're starting to lean left, and they're getting kind of that leftist mentality and big city mentality. I'm not including those, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about living out here in the sticks, which is the vast majority of the Ozarks. All right. I don't even remember where I was now before I interrupted myself. The Ozark people are pretty good people. It's almost like they don't even know a stranger. You can just start a conversation with some random person at a grocery store or at a gas station or just anywhere, just on the street. Out here in the country, if you break down, someone's going to stop and help you. In fact, there's a lot of people that just drive around just to help people out, especially in bad weather. I have been one of them, that when the weather gets bad, maybe a bad snow or an ice storm, and you have a vehicle that gets around really good, a lot of these good old boys, they drive around in their pickup trucks just looking for people that slid off the road just to help them. The Ozark people are good people. They're honest people. They're true, real people. What you see is what you get. They don't put on a show. They don't try to make you think they're something that they're not. Maybe sometimes in the beginning of getting close to them, I mean, they're nice to you immediately, but to get close to them, sometimes it can be a little standoffish. They're polite and they'll talk to you, but they may not always get close to you at first because they want to see what your intentions are. They know that people like to come here because it's cheap living and it's beautiful land and it's very good, fertile, clean land. And there's too many people from the big cities and the left-leaning big cities come here and they like to bring their big city ways. So, sometimes it might take a little while to get close to some people, maybe your neighbors or something, but once they see that you're not like that, they'll buddy right up to you just fine. People a lot of times think that, and I said this a few minutes earlier, that Ozarkian people are just lazy. They're just lazy hillbillies. They don't have no education, and they don't work, and they just lay around and do nothing. Let me tell you, that's the furthest thing from the truth. If you live out here in the country, it's not an easy life. And I don't see how you could be lazy living out like this. It's very common in the Ozarks, especially out here in the sticks, for a lot of people, to not work for the man. And they don't like to work for companies. They don't like to work for other people. And they certainly don't like to give their hard-earned pay to Uncle Sam. So it is very common out here to find people that they make a living just doing a lot of different things. They do a lot of different things. They work for themselves. And a lot of times they just work for cash or for trade. And while some of you might say, oh, well, that's awful, I kind of admire it. And I think that maybe if people did that more and sticking it to the man and to Uncle Sam, that things may not be as bad as they are right now. And so it's common to find Ozark people that just do little odd jobs. And some of them are seasonal. They may haul wood in the wintertime and scrap metal in the summertime and, plow your gardens and your fields and haul hay and dig trenches for you and work on your cars and do welding and just a lot of just odd jobs like that. And it kind of comes in handy, especially when you're, aware and into prepping, because having friends around you and neighbors around you that can do those things can certainly come in handy. Missouri, and especially the Ozarks, is not the state that most people think of when they think of gun-toting, Bible-thumping, conservative, flag-waving, hand over their heart, American pie or apple pie eating kind of people. They think of states like Texas or Florida or maybe Montana or other places like that. Missouri usually is not the first place that comes to mind. And I'll tell you the reason why that is. Because we don't like it getting out too much. Missourians don't like to draw attention to themselves. Most of the people out here in the Ozarks, they like to keep to themselves. They're very nice. They're very helpful. If you need something, they'll be right there for you, just as clean as quick as it can be. But they like to keep to themselves, and they don't like to be bothered. And they don't like to be bothered by people all over the country either. So Missourians don't go around bragging about how great it is usually. My wife, she's from Texas. All of her family's from Texas. And you know how people are from Texas. They like to brag to everyone. Texas is the greatest state. Texas is the biggest state, or at least was once the biggest. Texas has all the guns, and Texas is this, and Texas is that. You know what my wife says? Missouri is what Texas should be. She says that Missouri is more Texas than Texas. Was actually talking to someone this week, a few days ago, and he was also from Texas. Lived here a few years. And he said, when I moved here, he said, I was proud to be Texan. He said, I was proud of how, we loved our guns and we talked about it. And it was always being, how it's in movies. It's just in pop culture. Texas and their guns. He said, and then I moved here to Missouri, and people don't really brag about that kind of stuff and talk about that kind of stuff. He said, because people just live it. He said the things that this independent mindset that a lot of people around the country talk about, he said, Missouri just lives it. He said, I never thought I would see that. He said, but Missouri and the Ozarks, people just live it. The Ozarks, in my opinion, is probably one of the most free-minded parts of the country. And in a lot of ways, it probably should be its own state. It's unfortunate that the northern part of Missouri, or mid-Missouri all the way up north, is part of us, because there are certainly some very liberal places up there. But in Missouri, down here in the south, in the Ozarks, and then in parts of northern Arkansas, and over there on the very eastern little corners of Oklahoma, we're pretty self-sufficient and pretty independent. And it's a good place to live this kind of lifestyle. And it's a good place to have neighbors for this kind of lifestyle. There's not a neighbor that I have around me that I couldn't go up to their house and ask them for help or talk to them or anything. And when I'm out working or walking or driving around on one of these old roads and stuff, every time someone passes by, just about, they want to stop and talk, ask how it's going, what's going on in your world. And they always end the conversation, well, if you need anything, let me know. Because that's the kind of people there are here in the Ozarks. So I know there's lots and lots of bad stories about the Ozarks. I hear them all the time. But I'm telling you, what you hear about in pop culture and movies and in music and little tales and myths and legends, I guess you could say, of what happens here in the Ozarks, most of it's probably not true. I personally think people are very tolerant here in the Ozarks. I do see people of color and of different ethnicity and different backgrounds here all over the place. And every time I talk to any of them, they tell me they love it here, and they feel safer here and more respected here than they've ever felt in any other place they've lived. It's a good place. And for those of you that are trying to move out of Babylon and come out from among them and getting your houses in order, you might want to consider the Ozarks. There's still a lot of good land here and places available. Prices have gone up a little bit recently because of all this craze and scare, and you have to move pretty quickly if you're wanting to buy a place. But it's still out there if you look hard enough, and there are people here moving all the time. So it certainly should be one of the places that you consider if you're really wanting to make a change, and make a change that's safer for your family and that can provide a better long-term survivability. All right, folks, thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.